Greetings everyone, I'm Moore. Once again, this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title up there, I'm continuing my trek through the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond, one episode at a time. Season 5 is almost done. Here we are with episode 17, Stefania Arrives, as the title of that episode gives away. Stefania, Robert's brief Italian flame from the beginning of the season, is back, as is her father. And they're in Limbrook. This is a Tucker Colley and Lou Schneider written episode, so you know it's going to have some hijinks ensuing. Before I get too far into it, just a reminder, if you want to support the channel, both the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. If you want to do continuous support, go the Patreon route. You'll gain access to videos early, and you'll also be able to request topics for future videos. If you just want to do one-off support or one-off requests, go to PayPal route. Either way, your support of the channel will be appreciated. Now, this episode once again shows that Marie will go to any length to try to manipulate and control her children. This one, she's doing it under the guise of, I know what my son wants. He wants to settle down. He wants to have children. She says grandchildren when she brings it up, which definitely shows her plan. And she's like, Amy's a no-go. I don't want that creature back. He had fun with Stefania. We'll see if she wants to come in here. Maybe there's a spark there, and then we'll have beautiful Italian grandchildren. So she uses some of that money she saved, and Stefania is coming to visit, and it's going to be a surprise for Robert. And of course, Marco's coming. Now, the moment that Robert sees Stefania, he's surprised, but it's a pleasant surprise. Of course, there's some hijinks there, like Ray answers the door, which we get an excellent line from Robert. I didn't want the surprise when you gave it to me 40 years ago. Of course, his surprise and happiness at seeing Stefania is tempered a little bit when he sees Marco's also here. Like, he has to quickly stop hugging her. Because remember what happened when last time he saw Marco. Marco came at him with the shovel. And then they had that little scene where they're talking to each other. It's a play on a scene from one of the Godfather films. And of course, David Proval, Marco's actor, of course, was in mob-related shows. So you know he's going to make Robert an offer he can't refuse. He hopes that he'll be able to gather them all here on the day of his daughter's wedding, though. I can't go wrong with a good Brando impression. You know, could have been a contender. Could have been somebody instead of a bum. Anyway, going on. Robert goes on a couple dates with Stefania. He has a little bit of fun, but the more time he spends with Stefania, he sees there's nothing there. Part of it is, he says he finds her annoying, which is like, what? He didn't seem to find her annoying before. But part of it is she's not respecting his boundaries. Like, they go and play mini golf. This is the one date of theirs we actually see. She sticks her putter up his ass. And he asks her to stop and say, you know, when we were young, Ray would always poke me, and I have a thing about being poked. So it's a trigger for him. And she keeps doing it and all that. She keeps grabbing on him. Which I know someone's going to say, oh, poor Robert. And they even do that in the show. But the thing is, everybody has their own triggers and has their own comfort zone. With Robert, obviously, he doesn't like being poked. He asked Stefania to stop, and she kept doing it. She's ignoring his wishes, doing something against his consent, and ignoring anything that triggers him. And also going to that end, while she's grabbing on him, which, you know, I can speak as somebody with ADHD. There are times where physical contact is good and actually it is like soothing. It helps you calm down and all that. And there are times where overstimulation occurs and you're like, get off me, please. Please don't touch me. I don't want it and all that. Or, to put it another way, as a fictional dead terrorist once put it, stop touching me! I kill you. It gets like that. And Robert seems to not want that type of physical contact all the time. He likes it, but he doesn't want it all the time, or at least how Stefania's giving it. And she's not understanding social cues and the idea of not touching someone or doing something against someone's consent. Which, not to get it too far ahead, that's going to be interesting considering something that's going to pop up later, but we'll save that for the rant episode next season, if we're getting closer and closer. I don't have the box set in front of me, so I don't know which part of season 6 it's in, but it's a-coming. So ready yourself. We'll definitely be hitting it before this year's over, so stay tuned. You know, Frank and Marie do treat everybody to a dinner at Nemo's, and I just love Susie's reaction when she finds out that Frank is the one paying the tab. And even Nemo's like, don't take a check from him. And as I'm going to have to put it, this is our last episode with Nemo, played here by Robert Ruth as the second Nemo. And after this episode, you go away. Because Marco decides that he's going to stay in America. He's actually now liking Robert a little bit. I think he's gotten used to the idea of it. He sees Stefania likes Robert, even though Robert's having his little issues with it. And he wouldn't mind Robert being his son-in-law. Which, of course, adds to Robert's dilemmas like, oh, now I got Marco over me. Now Marco kind of likes me. Stefania likes me. Now what to do? And Deborah says something that is a very good and it's a piece of advice that really does go to this situation. But it's also something that if you could take any lesson from this episode, and if there is a moral to this episode, like if we reached into Animaniacs and pulled the wheel of morality and actually had to give a serious lesson, what would be the lesson that we should learn? Is when you're in a relationship with someone, whether it's just like you're just feeling each other out, you just went steady, you're exclusive, you've been together for a couple years, regardless of where you're at, you don't string somebody along. If one half of the party does like is head over heels in love with the person, but the other one is like just going through the motions and not feeling it. I don't mean like the appearance of not going through the motions, where they actually feel it, but they're just not. If you were to look at them, you'd be like, could have fooled me. I'm talking about, I'm just comfortable. I'm not gonna get anybody else. Just keeping it for the sake of keeping it. You don't string them along. Let them go. Be free. Fly. And Robert, that's one thing he has to learn here, is he has to tell Stefania. And in the last act, he does try to tell her, but Stefania keeps doing her stuff. I mean, when one part she actually removes the inner part of her clothing, her bra and her shirt, and is wearing one of Robert's tops. And you can tell from this what she's trying to do. Miss Fogagnolo, you're trying to seduce me. And Robert does the right thing. He shuts her down and tells her that he doesn't feel the same way. Now, where he messes up is that he actually says his true feelings about it, and then he finds her annoying, and this royally pisses Stefania off. Now, I know some Italians. I've dated someone who was half Italian and half French from Jersey. More her mother was the one that was like, yeah, you son of a bitch. But she can get moments like that too. And I've also dated Mexicans and that whole thing. How Stefania reacts is in line with both of those. She gets that fiery Latin Mediterranean temper, like, what is this annoying? And Alex with that Italian accent she does and starts bringing in a little bit of Italian there. Well, you can say with what happens that Robert gets off a little easy. Although if anyone's in the hall, they get a good show because Stefania does throw back his shirt, so off screen, she's naked. At least from the waist up. Oh, at least he got an ending show. But it's better than him continuing to string Stefania along. They end up married, and then 20 years down the road with kids, she finds out that Robert never really loved her, and it was just a marriage of convenience. Which Deborah seems to be the only person in the family, along a little bit with Ray after some prodding, that doesn't seem to mind that Robert doesn't want to go that way. Marie, even though she says she wants him to be happy, you know that she has her own selfish motivation for Stefania and him being together. And when Robert does bring up the fact he doesn't want to be with her, Marie being Marie, you know what she's going to bring up. Are you sure you're not gay? It's one of those things like, Marie. That seems to be more half her generational thing and half her being her thing. And that's not the last time she's going to bring it up. She's going to bring it up again in season 7, I believe, when we meet the frog lady. Save that for when we get to that episode. That's the last time they bring that up, because after that is when Robert and Amy get back together for the final time. That ends with them getting married. But with that one, it's like, really, Marie? Just because he's not with somebody does not mean he's gay. I mean, I know that Uncle Mel always said just because I never married doesn't mean I'm gay, even though it's kind of obvious he is gay. Or at the very least, bisexual. But just because he didn't get married doesn't mean that Robert not being married a second time or with somebody means he's gay. There's going to be a line he's going to say in that episode with the frog lady that shows. I mean, doesn't really ring true for Robert 100%, but it's one of those little bits of deep writing that we're going to get to later on in the show. Now, this episode ends with us finding out that Marco is now the owner of Nemo's Pizza, and from now on it's going to be Marco's Pizza. Now, we're not going to always see Marco at Marco's Pizza. There's going to be a few episodes we do see him. We're not going to see any of the characters that we're used to seeing around there. Like, I believe this is the last appearance of Susie. We're obviously not going to see Nemo's niece Angelina anymore in there. It's going to be replaced by Stefania. And of course, there's going to be an episode, I think in 5 episodes time, where it begins at Marco's Pizza. And that's going to be one of those ones that's like, oh my god. This type of episode. This is one of those episodes where it's like, yeah, you don't really need to do an intervention like that in the way you're doing it. It's one of those ones that, if it was made nowadays, you know it'd be getting lambasted, but we'll get to that episode when we get to it. Nothing really much else to say. The acting is pretty good across the board, all of them. You really do feel Robert's dilemma with how Brad plays him. Ray trying to be a supportive brother, but also feeling free to rib him. Deborah, with how Patricia plays it here, you definitely tell that she's trying to get Robert to do the right thing. Of course, Doris and Peter as Frank and Marie, always perfect, doing their characters with their characters' agendas. David, excellent as Marco. Not as overprotective because he's letting down his guard, but you can tell that he is not going to be happy with Robert when he sees him in the future. And of course, Alex as Stefania lets Robert have her with both barrels. And of course, Tucker and Lou's writing of this episode. It's about what you would expect from this scenario, and the fact that they showed that Robert has little issues with consent and some issues there with the relationship. You can show that those two, it was just like a little fling. And I kind of skipped over it, but Ray does kind of help give an analogy, or a metaphor for that relationship, how it was over in Italy, and it involves using what was it? It was cream of wheat in high heat and then low heat. I'm not going to really go into it or not, but it's one of those things that if you keep it too hot, your relationship might sizzle out and burn. You just got to have it at the right level. And that's a good little analogy there, especially when you apply it to how their relationship was, but then you also have all that stuff in between. And Deborah does bring this up. I think there is a little bit of guilt and lingering feelings that Robert has for Amy. I mean, they end up getting married later on, so there has to be. And that combined with Stefania not respecting his boundaries is why things turn out the way they do. Anyway, that's all I have to say here. Till next time, guys. And next week's episode, if I can skip ahead, I actually didn't do notes for this one. Ooh, this is going to be an interesting one. This is one I watch on occasion, the next one. But this revisit should be funny. And it's also a Lou Schneider episode. It's going to be involving the vacuum cleaner. Till then.